there is the case where there being effort as a factor for awakening present within me. He discerns that effort as a factor for awakening is present within me. Or there being no effort as a factor for awakening present within me, he discerns that effort as a factor for awakening is not present within me. He discerns how there is the arising of unarisen effort as a factor for awakening, and he discerns how there is culmination of the development of effort as a factor for awakening once it has arisen. So, dear noble friends, we are on to the listening supportive factor in our weekly gathering, in our weekly mindfulness workshop we carry out on every Wednesday and starting from 6:30. So for this discussion or the sermon, the discourse we have been discussing for I think about 4 or 5 years now is the discourse on 4 foundations of mindfulness. And we have discussed a quite lot on that. And now we are discussing the nature aspect or the Dhamma aspect or phenomena aspect that is explained in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So as you all know by now, as the word or the title itself suggests, it's 4 foundations. So we can be mindful either on the body or on our feelings, on our mind, or on the phenomena. So we are talking about the mindfulness of phenomena. So in mindfulness of phenomena, as you know, there are 2 parts, if I may say so, although the discourse is not directly explaining that. The two parts are the subtle layers of the physical and mental process, and the other is the spiritual layer. So we have already covered the subtle layers of physical and mental process. Now we are on to the spiritual side. So this is the starting of the spiritual side. In other words, talking about the awakening factors or factors for awakening is the beginning of the spiritual side in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. That is not to say when you concentrate or when you try to be mindful of the body or mindful of the feelings or mindful of mind and the phenomena are not spiritual, but this is spiritual in the sense we have come to the heightened level, or we have mastered the necessary mental states that should go for the ultimate liberation of nirvana. Right, so that is why we call it the spiritual side, or rather I call it spiritual side in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So we have discussed 2 already. They are the mindfulness as an awakening factor. We have discussed the investigation as a factor for awakening. So we have started in the last meeting the Viriya Sambojjhanga, or in other words, energy or the exertion or striving or effort as a factor for enlightenment. So in that we briefly touched upon the Viriya or the energy is not something static. It is something evolving in the practice. So therefore, there are 37. These numbers are not necessary. These titles and terms are not necessary, but I'm just explaining for understanding and just to confirm that they are teaching of the Buddha. There are 37 factors of enlightenment. In those 37 factors, the energy has been shown in 9 places, which is which is confirming the evolution of virya or evolution of energy, right? So the first starting point is Satara Samyak Padan virya, in other words, 4 right exertions. So there are 4 right exertions, and that is where everything starts. And then there is another one called 4 bases of spiritual powers. So in that, energy is 1. And there are 5 faculties in the spiritual path, like our ear, nose, etc. Even to develop or further in our spiritual practice, we will have to develop spiritual faculties. And one of the spiritual faculties is virya. And then once you develop them, they become your strengths. So when they become strengths, they become spiritual strengths. And again, virya is one of them. And then it leads to the next stage, which is virya sambojjhanga, right? So we will be discussing this evolution as the topic today. And after virya sambojjhanga, there is another one called Aryashtangika Magga, or Eightfold Noble Path. In the Eightfold Noble Path, Vayama is again, or the energy is again another factor. So we will come to all that. And to discuss the evolution, we will start with the first one. First one is Satara Samyak Padan virya. And here what I'm trying to do is not to now in 4 foundations of rather in the stanza or the section that I recited, it is not explaining what effort or what energy is. It simply says, when you are mindful of energy, you will be observing 4 basic movements, or 4 basic states, 4 basic stages, or 4 things that will happen to your energy factor as a factor for awakening. The first one is, he knows, the practitioner knows when it is present within, he knows that it is present within. And when it is not present within, he knows that it is not present within. And then also he knows something which was not present, something which is not arisen, when it is arising also he knows. And then also he knows when it is culminating and then developing and completing, he knows all that. So in other words, this process is what is explained in the 4 foundations of mind. But what I'm doing today is not to explain that process. We will have to first understand what the meaning of effort or the energy as a factor for mindfulness. So that is why I have given you this brief evolution process. So if we take the first one once again as the topic for today, which is Satara Samyak Pradan virya, or the 4 right exertions. So the 4 right exertions, I will read out the Pali part first. And it says, Anupannanang akusalanang dhammanang upadaya chandang janeti vayamati viryang arabati chittan paddannati padhati, is the Pali explanation of it. And then the second one, it says, I will explain the meaning of it in a little while. And the second one, it says, Uppannanang akusalanang dhammanang pahanaya chandang janeti vayamati viryang arabati chittam paddannati padhati. And the third one is Anuppannanang kusalanang dhammanang upadaya chandang janeti vayamati viryang arabati chittam paddannati. And the fourth is Uppannanang kusalanang dhammanang titiyaya asammosaya viryodharaya vepullaya bhavanaya paripuriyaya. So when you listen to this, you may feel that he's repeating the same words over and over again, because there are very subtle differences in the 4 exertions that are given. And I will come to the first one. The first one says, Anupannanang akusalanang dhammanang upadaya chandang janeti vayamati viriyang arabati chittan paddhanati padahapi. In that, Anupannanang means unarisen. Unarisen is the meaning of Anupannanang, not arisen yet. Akusalanang means unskillful or unwholesome. Dhammanang means the states. Nopadaya means avoid arising them, avoid generating them, avoid giving birth to them, right? Chandang janiti means generation of excitement. Vayamati is striving. Viryang arabati means start of exertion. And Chittan Padahanati is stretch your mind. And then Padahati takes up and confronts whatever that comes your way, right? So in other words, the meaning of it in English is, if you generation of excitement, striving, start of exertions, and stretching your mind and confronts for the prevention of unskillful states to arise. So when you see that, the effort or the energy is not the prevention of unskillful states to arise. That is the result. And to do that, there are a few mental involvements. There are some mental energizations. So the mental energization is just like a seed, and then it grows into a huge tree. It's first, you generate excitement, right? It's just like meeting your boyfriend or girlfriend, right? So the first thing that happens is we get excited, right? So like that, even here, you generate excitement, and then you strive. After that excitement, you strive, and then go to the next stage, and then go to the next stage, then go to the next stage. That is how families start. That is how we become grandfathers, grandmothers, right? And the same thing is applicable even in the prevention of unskillful states to arise, right? So one day, when we were living in our normal life with no clue of, all of us have that stage of life, no clue of Dhamma, right? We have been just eating, drinking, partying, clubbing and all that. No Dhamma. But one fine day, for one reason or the other, you meet somebody, or you happen to listen to a talk, or you read something, and you understand that there is another side to life rather than just satisfying our own senses, sense faculties. So when you hear that, you may generate some excitement. Wow, there is something like this as well. And it is not every day going to work. It is not every day eating and drinking and then sleeping and then following day go and play with kids and all that. That's not the only thing. There is another side to life. There is another side to another side called spirituality. And then when the excitement generates, then you try to look for it. And then that person says, okay, there are YouTubes that you can listen to, there are talks, and then there are other things that you can do. Then you start doing that. That excitement, you take a further step, and then you strive, make time for it, and then every day you listen to a talk. And then when you listen to a talk, and then it gets more and more exciting, then you not just listen to a talk, you ensure that every day you listen to a talk. And to do that, you will have to stretch your mind and arrange everything in your household or in your day-to-day activities, and you allocate time for this spiritual listening. And then when there is anything that disturbs your way of life, so far as this new excitement is concerned or new change is concerned, you confront them and you ensure you do the new thing that you have started. So that is the basic starting of the energy, right? So it goes further. And when you're listening to this person, he might say, not only this, there are things that you can do. There is something called meditation or something called mindfulness. And then not only just listening, you understand this is not just intellectual entertainment, intellectual activity, intellectual satisfaction. There is something we can actually do, and we can get to the stage that is explained in these texts and in these talks, and that becomes another round of your excitement, another round of striving, another round of start of exertion, another round of stretching the mind, and then confronting anything that comes your way, because now you're going to the next layer, next level. In that level, or before going to that, I would say, when you in the first stage, and although I'm explaining it this way, assuming this happens to all of us, it is not necessary to happen this way. This is just explanation only. And when you listen to talks at that stage, one may ask, what is the prevention of unskillful state? The prevention of unskillful states is when you continuously, when you are completely involved in listening to a talk in your day-to-day routine, then during that time, you don't spend your time entertaining your sense faculties. You don't watch TV. You don't watch Netflix. You don't watch YouTube. You don't watch AFL and grand final and this and that, right? That is just sense faculties. So you have satisfying sense faculties to the extent which is not necessary is an unskillful state. And during that time, you are listening to this particular person or this particular talk that you have been listening, and you avoid those unskillful states, right? So coming back to the next stage or next layer, where you start practice. When you start the practice, okay, we have, say, for example, in this particular session, we have session every Wednesday. And then when we say that we have sessions on weekly, and some of you have already generated excitement. Some of you have already completed striving. Some of you have already started the exertion of energy. Now it is the stretching the mind and confronting anything that challenges it. Right? And we know from our past 5 to 6 years experience, if not more, we have had a lot of people with excitement. They come to the first session, second session, third session, and the excitement does not continue. And therefore, they don't have the necessary right exertions to walk on the path, right? So the people here have been doing it for some time, and that exertion is there, that momentum is gathered. And we know there have been people striving. There are some people who have been coming here for 3 months, 4 months, and even 2-3 years. But they dropped out. Although they have strived, they dropped out. And Viryang Arambati, which means start of exertion. And there have been people even being with us longer, but they have dropped out. But this stage, when you continue this, when you continue the practice, there will have a lot of challenges. There will have a lot of challenges from your workplace. There will have a lot of family commitments. There will have a lot of commitments from the society, and your status will change, and a lot of things will come up. So when they come up, you will have to confront all that, and then you will have to ensure that your practice is not disturbed. I remember, as you all know, I was a family man, and when I was maintaining the family with growing kids growing up, I take them to the tuition classes and put them in the tuition class. And in that, if it is 1 hour, I'll just walk up and down on a selected path in that 1 hour. So there was a tuition master opposite, who is this mining magnate we have in Queensland? Palmer. That tuition master was opposite Palmer's house in Fig Tree Park. So when I was walking up and down, the security guard comes and asks, "What are you doing here?" So I had to explain, "No, my kid is in this house, and she has gone for tuition. I'm just exercising, just walking up and down." So, and finally, even the tuition master had to leave that place, and he sold that house and he went to another place. So that's a different story. So like that, we will have to stretch our mind. We will have to be so firm that whatever comes in our way, we will not just give in to them. We will continue this. So like that is just an example from my life. So you may have had plenty of such instances. So if we just give in to them, then we don't have the energy to go further, because when you walk on the path, what you experience when you bring your mind to the body, it's much more difficult, right? So therefore, these basic things, the first stage, you will have to be very, very strong, and you don't just stop with the excitement. You don't just try. You don't just start and then stop. No, you just keep going. So if you keep going, that gives you the push which is necessary. And when you do that, if we take this particular session, in this 3 hours, you completely the unskillful state that you are preventing here is you have completely come out of the sensual world. So your all sense objects are in one place. You are in the temple, and if you are in the temple, you are in the temple. So you are not with the sense objects, right? So therefore, being with sense objects, being with our partners, being with our family, being what we love, is, so far as the path is concerned, although it is not compulsory, it's to a certain extent an unskillful state. And if you come out of that, it's a very skillful state. So you have developed that, you have prevented that happening during this 3 hours, and it happens weekly. So it becomes stronger and stronger. And not only that, forget about the sensual world. Sensual world is something that we require, and we are maintaining our sensual. We don't have an excessive sensual desires and excessive sensual pleasures. We are not seeking. We are having the bare minimum. We will assume so. Even when we do that, possibly at home, we may be breaking some precepts without our knowledge or not, right? Maybe we may be taking a glass of wine, or without our knowledge, there is a cockroach and you give a 6 to him or to the cockroach, or maybe without our knowledge, our tongue may slip and we may exaggerate something we should say, or we will hide something when we are talking. So therefore, we may break some precepts, may not be deliberately, although it is necessary to be deliberate and intentional to break a precept. But those things might happen. But these 3 hours, when you are just walking up and down, and when you are doing your sitting practice, and when you are listening to this talk, none of these things are happening. All your precepts are completely observed. right? So therefore, that is the unskillful state, unwholesome states that you have prevented just by practicing in so many years you have been practicing now, right? So, and not only you just do it, you do it continuously, right? So it's like avoiding enemies coming to Australia. We have enemies and troublemakers come to Australia from all over the world, especially from Sri Lanka. That is why we have a border force. And we have border force, maybe air, maybe sea, and of course roads are not applicable for us. And in some countries, you have a border force even for road entrances. But during COVID time, we know Queensland was no place. We're not allowing anybody to come in. And that is how we protected ourselves for for a couple of years almost, right? So that is because we did not want any viruses to come in. And since we were able to close the border, we were successful. And the same thing is what Buddha is saying here. What Buddha says is, if you have this excitement and if you have this striving, if you have this starting of exertions, if you have this stretching of mind, if you confront anything that comes your way, only thing you will do is, that is the effort for preventing of unskillful state. The unskillful viruses or the states that we have prevented is here, the basic. At least we have observed our presence, right? So that is the first right exertion that we can do. And if you go to the second, which says, Uppannānaṁ akusalānaṁ dhammānaṁ pahanāya candhyam dhaniti vāyamati vidyam ārabhati cittam pagganati padāti. It's again the same words, same meanings. It is excitement, it is striving, it is start of exertions, it is the stretching of your mind, not to stop. No, I don't just give it up. And then padahati means you confront whatever that comes your way and you just dash towards your goal, dash towards your target, right? The same words as for the first one. But what you're achieving is different. In the first one, Anuppannānaṁ akusalānaṁ dhammānaṁ, which means unarisen prevention of unskillful states to arise. Unarisen, unskillful states will not be arisen, or you will ensure that they will not be arisen. But in the second one, it is uppannāna, means already arisen. Unskillful states are there, right? We may have all sorts of border protections, but we know how many people came into the states during COVID time with false declaration and just bypassing the border protection. And similarly, in our country border protection, although you have all these forms and checking and then scrutiny and all that, you know how many Sri Lankans just come by boat to Sri Lanka or rather Australia, and how many Africans, how many Afghanistanis, how many Pakistanis are coming to Australia. Everything is there, but they just go through all these controls, all these security systems, and then they come inside, right? So I'm just taking this example. Say in the case of country security, right? There will have a lot of terrorists that come your way, or the people who attack your country. So there will have a lot of spies, right? So how you handle this is the next question. So far as our practice is concerned, it is not border protection. Our practice is concerned, what are these uppannānaṁ kusalānaṁ? What are these already arisen unskillful states? You know, when you are walking up and down, when you do your walking practice, or when you do your sitting practice, you get so many thoughts. It's non-stop. It's much better than a Netflix movie. It's so vivid, right? So they are now the enemies who have come into the territory. No one is coming from outside because you have all the border protections. But there are clever ones already come in. So in other words, what I want to say is, we may have, although we have left all our sensual objects at home, the shadows of sensual objects, the shades of sensual objects, the sense desire will not go anywhere. It will be in your mind all the time. So those sense desires are the ones that comes as your thoughts, maybe. Or maybe your sense desire, or the hatred, right? There is another term for it. I don't remember it. In four hindrances, the first one is sense desire, and the other one is, Chatu, you remember? And you remember? It's not the hatred. There is another term for it. Yeah, it's the shadow of the hatred. Maybe there. Well, you don't fight with anybody, but there is someone that comes to you all the mind, and you feel almost giving a punch to him, right? Those things will be working in your mind, or your mind may be very restless and thinking about something happening tomorrow, or you may be worrying about something that has happened yesterday or in the past, or you may be thinking, is this the right thing I am doing? Am I wasting time? Or has Buddha really done these things? Have there been people really enlightened? And there will be a lot of suspicious thoughts. Or if none of these are there, you may be feeling very sleepy, especially when you come at 6:30 after work and sit here, and you can have a very good nap, right? So those things are the enemies who have already come in, despite the fact that we have border protection. Now, to catch them, you having a border protection won't do. To catch them, what we do is, they are spies. They have come illegally. We also have a spy system. The spy system we have is the mindfulness. We just try to take our mind to a neutral object. When we try to do that, these sense desires and the hatred and the other hindrances I just mentioned, they will start coming up. They can't just hide. They will not be able to just stay without showing their prominence. When you take your mind to a neutral object, if you are someone who has been satisfying your senses all the time, your sense desire may want you to get up and go and satisfy your senses. So it can't just stay hidden. So to take it out only, our spy system is having a trick. Put your attention to the neutral object. When you put your attention to the neutral object, everything else is coming out, right? So when you put your attention to a neutral object, and if you are a person with hatred mind, then you will not be able to keep your attention to the neutral object. Always that pus within your mind will start oozing out, right? So in that manner, we use our security system to catch the enemies within us. So how we do it is we let all these things come up. You know, there are so many thoughts, but what we do is, what we say is, you may have thoughts coming up. There may have disturbances. Don't worry about the disturbances. Let them be there. As much as possible, not straining yourself, not hating the thoughts that are arising, not fighting with them. Let them be there. You have not invited them to come, although they have come. So if they have come uninvited, you don't worry about them. You try to keep your attention as long as possible with your neutral object. Maybe the walking process or the sole of the feet, whatever that you have selected. Or if you are sitting, maybe your breath, or maybe rising and falling of the tummy, rising and falling of the chest, or maybe just observing your body, anything, right? You keep your attention to that as long as possible. So if you do that, although your sense desire, your hatred, and your restlessness and worry come and try to disturb, you don't bother about them. You just let them. If they have come, just ignore them, right? You don't ignore them intentionally. You ignore them in a strategic manner by keeping your attention to your neutral object. Not that you see them and you don't say in your mind, no, I don't care about them. Right? You don't do that. You just, as long as possible, with a smile, you try to keep your attention to the neutral object. But there will have an instance where these thoughts or the hindrances are overwhelming and you cannot bring your attention at all to your breath, especially when the breath is becoming subtle, or when your walking is happening on its own, when your walking is happening unintentionally without your involvement, then the mind opens up more and more and more and more. Pus will be coming out, the sense desires and hatred and restlessness, worry, and the skeptical doubts, all these will come out. So then, since they are overwhelming, now what you do is, when they come up, what they ask you to do is, if it's a sense desire, for example, as I said earlier, stop and go and have a drink, have a tea, or do something else. But now what you do is, since that is overwhelming you, it has become, you have become that particular thing, then you observe that instead of your neutral object. In other words, you become neutral to these shades that are coming up. You just observe them instead of reaction. Instead of asking what it wants, you just observe them. When you observe them, what you will see is, there is no difference between observing walking and observing the breath. Even these things will have the same pattern. Initially, when you see them, they are so dramatic. They are so vivid. There are a lot of things to see. But if you keep on observing, they also gradually fade away, even much faster than the physical fading away. Because thought means it is the thing in the world that has the shortest life. Thoughts are just happening, and even before it happens, it vanishes. It's working so fast. Right? So therefore, when you just observe, you start observing this nature, and you don't involve yourself with them. And since you don't involve yourself with them, you don't identify yourself with them. When you don't identify yourself with them, you don't trouble the trouble. Simple as that. Otherwise, what we do in our life is, most of the time, we are just troubling troubles, and not that the troubles are troubling us. Right? So that way, to do that, to abandon this risen unskillful state, it is not as easy as just walking up and down. And by just walking up and down, we were able to prevent the sense satisfactions and observe the present. But here, your excitement should be much higher. Because when you come to practice, you come, okay, I will be able to observe the breath and I will master breath in 1 month, and then in 2 months I will become this, and in 3 months I will become this, and those are the objectives that you have. But when you come here, you have been practicing for 6 months, but still you are struggling with thoughts, right? So then you may get fed up. This is where you need to have not just the excitement, not just striving, not just start the exertion. This is where you need to have the stretching of mind. Okay, every time when I go, I learn something new, how to handle this situation. So one day you will realize these thoughts are something that are naturally happening. So I'm just troubling them, I'm bothering them. So therefore I will have to simply do is observe. It is either the main object or the new object that has just arisen. No matter. Only thing that you are asked to do is not to do anything. And to do that, not to do something, in this case, requires a lot of energy. Because you are directly fighting with an enemy who is hidden. It's a guerrilla war. Enemy is not coming as an enemy. It comes as sense desire. It comes as hating someone whom you don't like. Therefore, it may be a bit difficult than the first one. Because in the first one, they haven't crossed the border, so we are safe. In this case, we are fighting with the ones who have crossed the border, and they will have plenty of excuses, plenty of reasons to say that. Recently, I'm not talking about politics. There was a Sri Lankan family whom were denied the stay in the country. But as soon as the Labour government came, they were granted. So it's like that. We will have to have that energy. We will have to have the energy to fight continuously because the enemy is in. Right. So that is the second right exertion. And I may take few minutes. Is it okay to take few minutes and explain the next two? Not few minutes. It might take at least half an hour. Or anyway, we are going till 9:30. Is it? Chatu?
I don't know.
Yeah. Since we started at 6:30, I think we can. Yes, I will go ahead if it's okay.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. So the next stage is the third stage is anuppannānaṁ akusalaṇaṁ dhammānaṁ uppaddāya chandang janeti vāyamati viryang āravati cittan paggannāti padāti, which means here once again the word anuppannānaṁ is coming. But all this time in the first two, we were talking about akusalana. Akusalana means unskillful states, right? But here it's talking about anuppannānaṁ, which means arisen, not unskillful, but skillful states. Now you require the effort. Now you require the excitement. Now you require the striving. Now you require the start of energy. Now you require the stretching of your mind. Now you require the confronting anything that comes your way to challenge it. To what? To arise the skillful states. To ensure the arising of unarisen, unarisen skillful states. Right. So, what is the unarisen skillful states? So, suppose when you were having a lot of thoughts, when you were battered by hindrances, when you are disturbed by so much of leg pain and hip pain and neck pains and all sorts of pain, you have continued, right? So when you continue, it was so difficult, and there were so many instances where you felt stopping this, and you felt that this has no meaning, but you still continued. And I met someone when I went to Canberra last year. She said she was practicing so well, and when I went there, she said, Bante, this is the first time I'm coming after 6 months. I asked what happened. Then she said, no, it came to a point that I don't realize that this has any progress. I thought this is not something to me, something for me. I asked what happened. Then she said, no, nothing is happening. That is the problem. And it is just boring, just gloomy, just sleepy. And when I started, it was so exciting and everything was happening very fast. Now nothing is happening. Every day I walk, every day I sit. It is just that I just walk and sit, and there is nothing for me to talk about. And then I told her, this is exactly the mistake of not talking. If you talk that these things are happening, and of course the practitioner will not understand what's going on. You must talk. When you talk only, the noble friend will be able to understand what is happening in the practice. Right? So therefore, what I want to say is, if something like that is happening, if you feel, it won't take long. Even for the newcomer, you will get this. You may feel bored in 2 minutes. When I was doing, or not when I was doing, even now I'm doing it, in mindful school for children, I asked at the end of the session, were you bored? Everyone says yes. I said, that is the only thing I wanted. I want you to get bored and know that it is boring, and that itself is price or the gift to say that you are not with your senses or not sense faculties, and also it says that you don't have hatred. In other words, you feel bored when you don't have greed, when you don't have hatred. If you have a greed, if you have hatred, not just for sense faculties, if you are greedy about that your practice is going well, or if you are hating, or if you are fighting with the disturbances that arises in the practice, then still you have something to do, something to say, something to talk. But now even that is not there. There you don't have any excitement even relating to the object or to your own practice. Then it's so miserable. That is the achievement Buddha is asking. You don't hang on to the object. You don't identify yourself with the object. Let it fade away. It is fading away. It has faded away. You are just walking and you don't observe anything. There is nothing for you to see. You don't feel anything, but you just keep walking up and down. Sometimes you
feel that you are going to fall, or maybe you are walking zigzag, or you may be feeling that you are having a drunken person's walk. And you don't see, this is not why you wanted to practice. What has happened to me, you may be thinking. And even same thing while sitting. You may just sit and get up when the bell goes, and you don't know whether you have been sleeping or whether you have been doing something else. So that is where the greed is completely gone, even towards the object. You don't hate anything that is disturbing it. And when this is happening, to continue the practice is much, you require much more energy than the first and the second stage, because now you are developing the skill to keep the greed at bay, to keep the hatred at bay. And the certificate confirming that your greed and the hatred is at bay is boredom, is feeling gloomy, feeling miserable, feeling sleepy. Buddha says that is the highest Dhamma. Virago setto Dhamma. Dispassion. The technical term is the dispassion. When you have dispassion, if you have passion towards something, then very hyped up, very pumped up. But if it is dispassion, you may feel, what is this, what I was looking for? Buddha says, yes, this is what I am trying to do, and you have reached that. Don't turn back and go. And even if you want to go, if you have kept your mindfulness to the fore, I will be coming behind you. So even if you go, stop. You can't stop, because when you go to your sensual world, normal world, you completely see the difference. You have experienced the other side of the life. So you see how peaceful it is. It is bored. It is gloomy. It is sleepy. Agreed. But the stress, the tension that you have in the sensual world is much higher. Much higher. So therefore, you may stop for 6 months, 1 year, but you can't continue because you have seen the other alternative, right? So this happens. Sometimes you may feel that you are completely unmindful. Because when we say mindfulness, and most of the people think we should be aware each and every fraction of a second in our life. And if you forget something, and if you miss something, and you may feel that you are getting dementia. It is not that. Because your hatred and greed is fading away. You don't take more perceptions into your mind. Your perceptions are fading away. You need a lot of perceptions. You need a lot of notes. You need a lot of signs. You need a lot of shapes and manners to be in your mind, which we call perceptions. If you are greedy of something, or if you want to hate something, if that is not there, your perceptions naturally fade away, vanish from your mind, right? So it is again a certificate that your mindfulness is improved. So you may go to the car and look for your car. So it has happened to a few people. And you may have your key in your own pocket, but you look for it. So when this happens, the thing that you will have to appreciate is not the dispassion. You will have to appreciate the fact that I am aware of these things because my mindfulness is high. Now your mindfulness earlier was with the object. Mindfulness now is not with the object. It is not even with the disturbances to the object. And it is a situation which is completely I don't know and I can't accept, I can't agree. But still I am aware of it. I can be aware when there is nothing for me to observe. And that appreciation is much higher than the appreciation of awareness that you had when the object was there. Right? So, again, how it happens is it has developed into now a fruit-bearing tree. It's when birds eat fruits, they just eat it and just drop somewhere, drop on a rock sometimes, especially in Sri Lanka. We have seen small trees rooting into a rock. And then after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, a huge tree has come and the rock has been broken into two over time. So this is what is happening even in our practice. Initially, we just started with some talk that you heard in one of your friends' place. You went for some offering of food to a monk, and monk has said something and that struck you. Or you read some book while going to office, and then some words, some sentences, some statements in there really took your heart. And that is the dropping of the seed. And that has gradually grown into, although it fell on a rock, it has gradually rooted, and root has developed, and that root has been able to split the rock, and therefore we are able to have now, because of that, different way of life, right? A different way of life, in the sense, a life where we are able to go to states that we don't have greed, we don't have hatred, right? So, which is called a state of dispassion. When you have this state of dispassion, you have motivated yourself, allowed yourself, energized yourself to develop a skillful state that you did not have earlier. Because this is a real skillful state. And then what you will have to do is, you will have to sustain that. You will have to make it abundant. You will have to be heroic in developing it. And you will have to avoid the confusion relating to it. And you will have to completely develop and accomplish the arisen skillful state. This skillful states will have to be more and more developed and take to your accomplishment or take to your target. So therefore it says, Uppannanam kusalanam dhammanam titiyaya asammosaya viryodhanaya vepullaya bhavanaya paripurya. In all the other 3 stages of your right exertions, they were saying Chandangyaneti Vayamati Viryang Arabati Chittan Pagganati Padhati, which means you have the excitement, you have the striving, you have the start of exertions, you have the stretching of mind, you have confrontation of any challenges. But now all these things are not necessary. You have touched upon this generating your skill. Now, once you have generated the skill, now nothing else to do. You will have to sustain it. You will have to avoid any confusion related to it. And you will have to be very heroic if something against that is happening. And you will have to make it in abundance. You will have to stretch your range, right? It is not just walking. It is not just sitting. And you will have to develop as much as possible and shoot to the target. So if I take this in the context of our practice, what you have now developed is you are trying to be more and more non-reactional to this gloomy state, to this boring stage, to this miserable state, to this sleepy state, right? So what happens is when you don't greed and hatred, right, what is left is the delusion. Because the delusion is there, you may feel sleepy. But if you don't feel sleepy, if you don't feel sleepy and you feel bored, which means even the delusion is handled and tackled and challenged to a certain extent. If you feel deluded, then you just feel sleepy and you don't know what is happening. But here, you can experience a dispassion, so boring or so miserable, right? You feel that you are thrown out of the sitting. You feel plenty of time, stop this and go and have a drink or go to the toilet or do something else and come. And most of the time we do it, right? So now we are maintaining our awareness to this situation very happily, right? We know that we are able to observe this as well. And this is happening because of my mindfulness. Since because of that, we keep on appreciating the mindfulness. And when you appreciate mindfulness, your non-reaction develops further. And when it develops further, your boredom also increasing at the same rate. When the boredom increasing at the same rate, your appreciation of mindfulness also increases, or you will have to appreciate the mindfulness more and more because you are able to observe this, you are able to see this because you are mindful. So then there will have a point, the boredom gets bored. The miserable situation becomes miserable to itself. So when the boredom gets bored, there is nothing to bore you, right? So when this is happening, there will have a lot of changes happening within your physical and mental process. Your way of thinking has completely changed. You don't react to things. You are just an observer. As a result, your physical manifestations changes. Physical demands are changing. Maybe it is physically challenging to you. Let me put it this way. When you keep on observing the boredom, ourselves may not have the biochemical requirements that it used to have when we were satisfying our senses, or when we were loving and hugging our main object, or when we were hating our disturbances to the main object or the main meditation or the calmness of the meditation. Then to a certain extent, the biochemical requirements of our cells were satisfied. Now we don't even that. Since you don't do that, only you feel this boredom. And when you keep on appreciating the boredom, that becomes even more agitated. The body wants hyped up situation, right? So when you don't provide, you may feel different type of energy. In other words, the negative energy with which our body was maintained is now completely ignored, isolated, and cornered, right? So this negative energy may get activated. So you may feel throbbing, you may feel choking, you may feel shaking, you may feel shivering. And there were a couple of guys the other day, I don't know whether they are here today, and I saw one of them was having those jerks, but he was having all sorts of other questions, not continuing the practice. Anyway, so that is because we have challenged our way of physical manifestations. We have challenged our thinking patterns, right? We have challenged the basic roots of unwholesome states, right? So when those energies are coming up, now you will have to sustain it. That is called this is a skillful state, that you are able to get those negative energies seen. All these things have been working in the past and you did not know. Now, since you were able to corner them, the negative energies is manifesting in your body. So when they manifest in your body, you will have to sustain the skill to see that. So keep on doing it. And when those things are happening, there is no doubt, especially in the Western world, they will misinterpret. And that is why that person was asking questions in funny way the other day. Although I knew I didn't want to go into much detail on the very first day, because he has got to continue the practice with me or in this method, then we can gradually show him what is happening. But he's not ready to listen and walk on the path. You can't just, it is not just information. It is just what is important is the practice. So therefore, it's very important. You should not have any confusion of what is going on. And when those negative energies are arising, a lot of people may get confused. No, somebody has possessed me. This is a devilish situation. I remember when I was doing Goenkaji, a lot of people leave on the 3rd or the 6th day and they blast the manager. They blast the manager. What a devil is living here. Because actually, the devil within him have started coming out and practice has worked. And they get confused. And especially in Goenkaji's practices, there is no one to explain them in that way. They don't have anybody to explain it properly to those people. So they just ask you to come observe the breath and observe the sensation. That's all they say. No, there is a process that is happening. And if you really explain it to them, they may realize what is going on, right? So therefore, we now, not the excitement, we are sustaining it. And when the skill is developing, this is a skill that you have not had in the past, you should avoid confusion about it. That is called asammosaya. And then you'll have to be very heroic. This is very dangerous. And when you feel throbbing, when you feel someone is trying to choke, squeeze your neck, choking, how can you be heroic? You may feel, okay, no, I stop everything. This is how the negativity is coming out. This is how the negative energy is going out. So you will have to just let it happen, because you have appreciated the mindfulness so much, and this is something that you are experiencing, which you have never experienced in the past. It's all, you may feel that you are going to die in the next 2 seconds. Let it happen. I will be observed. So Bhante Dhammajiva says, if you go through the death, then only enlightenment will be there. So if those things are happening, negative energies means our unwanted mental process. And that mental process is
in our body, within our body. This is why at the very beginning of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, they say, keep the mindfulness to the fore, having the body as your focal point. Because this is a physical and mental process going together. So when you develop your mind, when you sharpen your mind, it will start dancing on your body. It will get manifested in your physical process. So therefore, when that is happening, you will see things that you have not seen, because you have never seen your body at work. You have seen other bodies at work, not your body. So when you see that, and definitely unbearable, there is no doubt about it. And the Blessed One say here, Viryodaraya, which means be heroic, let anything happen. And this is what Eckhart Tolle has done. If you have read Power of Now, in the first page or the first paragraph, he says, he was so miserable and he wanted to commit suicide. And he has taken the poison bottle and gone to the park and sat on a bench. And then he has just observed his body. This negative energy has come up. And it has been choking him. And he has felt that he's going to die. And then he has decided, whether I take the poison, I will die, or if this happens, I will die. So I will die, so I will be observing this. And he has observed it, and after that, he has become a spiritual, motivational speaker. So this is not something that a human being cannot do. It's something that human being can do. We can corner all our negative energies when you just don't do anything, observe whatever is happening. Then those negative energies, when it is coming out, if you simply keep observing, they will go out. And you will see those negative energies will no longer be able to be in your system, because your system is purified. Physically you are purified, mentally you are purified. Since you are mentally purified, mental processes required, negative mental processes or negative mental energy is required to maintain the body. Physicality is no longer required. So therefore, they just get flushed out. So when that happens, when you have become once heroic, it does not stop there. You don't wash your hands. Okay, I have everything done. I'm fine. No, then the Blessed One says, make it abundant. It is just once. You don't know what stock you have inside. Keep on doing it. Keep on doing it. And then he says, bhavana, development. Then only the bhavana comes. Then only the development comes. We all say bhavana, bhavana, meditate, meditate. Before meditation, there are 3 stages that have got to be passed. And then even in the 4th stage, it's just another factor. You keep developing this. You keep on doing the same thing. After that happens, you keep on doing the same thing until you hit the target, final target. Right now, you have already achieved. You have already gone to a stage where you can corner your negative energies, and you are able to how these negative energies are getting flushed out. So that itself is an achievement. Once you achieve that, then you'll have to keep on doing the same thing until the last bit of negative energies in your system goes out. Then you will be an enlightened person. No after death, no birth, so no suffering. So may you all have a situation where there is no suffering, and blessings of the Noble Triple J.
Yes, it was a good talk.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm not quite sure whether there are any comments, questions to ask, because I have taken the full time for the talk, didn't leave any time for the discussion. But still, if you have any questions, it's not late for me anyway. just 5 o'clock for me.
You've given me a lot to think about and to contemplate on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. I enjoyed the talk very much.
All right, thank you. All right, so if there are no other questions, we can...
Bhante,
Yes.
I'll just make mention, those 2 boys that came last week, the guy who was doing the jerking.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very interested. He had something to do with his job roster, but he really wanted to come
Right.
again. And yeah, he said he was practicing at home. He's doing mindfulness now.
That's good.
So we'll see him at some point in time. I don't know when.
Right, right. So you will have to encourage them, because those are the challenges we have. So we will have to help them, support them, and get them out of, the normal way of thinking. This is the normal way of thinking. We will have to finish that. We will have to finish this. But those things will never happen. We will have to now change way of thinking and change the way we do things. Then everything will fall into line. All right. So thank you very much. So to conclude the session, we will chant or rather share the positive energies with all the living beings. So to do that, we will chant the traditional stanzas.